A wild parrot spends its day navigating the dense, chaotic architecture of the tropical canopy. They decode a constant flood of visual information, fly vast distances, and solve environmental puzzles just to survive. Then they are brought into a living room, an environment stripped of nearly all that sensory input and physical challenge. This sensory drop-off creates a silent crisis. Inside domestic homes, there is a rising frequency of parrots exhibiting constant screaming, hyper-aggressiveness, and a severe condition known as feather-damaging behavior, where the bird plucks out its own plumage. Owners often misinterpret these symptoms. They treat the screaming or biting as simple bad manners, attempting to discipline the bird with timeouts or distracting them with plastic toys. This approach ignores a basic biological fact. Dogs and cats have undergone thousands of years of selective breeding to adapt to human households. Parrots have no history of domestication. They retain the exact same high-alert survival instincts as the wild counterparts. When we force a brain adapted for total sensory immersion into a silent, static box, the mismatch between instinct and environment pushes the bird toward a profound psychological breaking point. Research from Faunalytics reveals a surprising vulnerability. High intelligence is a massive survival advantage in the wild, but in captivity, that same intellect becomes a psychological hazard. Highly intelligent species require constant cognitive stimulation. When restricted from natural foraging and problem-solving, their energy has nowhere to go. They develop stereotypies, abnormal, repetitive movements like endless pacing or head bobbing. This animated data plot tracks parrot personality metrics against these behaviors. The results show a direct correlation. Birds that score higher in neuroticism are significantly more vulnerable to environmental stress and exhibit much higher rates of stereotypy. The social environment of a human home adds another layer of biological confusion. When an owner allows a parrot to sit on their shoulder or snuggle up against them, the bird's body interprets this as reproductive mating behavior, triggering massive spikes in reproductive hormones. Because the human is acting as a surrogate mate, the bird becomes fiercely pair-bonded. When that human leaves the house for work, the parrot experiences crushing frustration and severe separation anxiety, often resulting in self-mutilation. Well-intentioned affection inadvertently traps the bird in an agonizing cycle of unfulfilled social and reproductive biology. The visible behavior is a symptom of systemic physical damage. A restrictive environment, a diet high in metabolizable energy, and a lack of sustained flight lead directly to internal pathologies, including lethal atherosclerosis. A landmark study from the Konrad Lorenz Institute examined African gray parrots to find the microscopic impact of severe social isolation and loneliness. This diagram shows a chromosome. The highlighted ends are telomeres, caps that dictate cellular aging. Researchers found chronic loneliness physically erodes them. Data shows a single-housed 9-year-old bird has the exact same DNA degradation as a 32-year-old paired bird. The stress of captivity is not just an emotional issue, it is actively breaking down their physical bodies, aging them to death at a cellular level. Because of this massive biological mismatch, the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service mandates that environmental enrichment is a preventative medical requirement, not an optional reward. The first intervention is overhauling how they eat. Passive food bowls must be replaced with complex, time-consuming foraging puzzles that require actual problem-solving effort. Next, they need exposure to the elements. Outdoor aviaries provide essential UVB radiation from the sun, and they offer spaces for natural plant foraging behaviors. Inside, they require an uninterrupted 12-hour day and night cycle. This means sleeping in a separate, completely dark room to properly regulate their reproductive hormones and ensure deep rest. The overarching psychological goal of these physical changes is to foster healthy independence, breaking the cycle of toxic codependence on a human owner. If we choose to bring a wild animal into our home, the burden of adaptation falls entirely on us. We have to actively recreate the biological imperatives of the wild.